Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Science Not Silence live stream concluding our days at COP. We're sorry we missed you last night, but we'll catch you up on everything from last night tonight. So welcome back again, our guests Hita and Marie Claire. So I'll immediately hand it over to y'all. Can you give us a quick recap on what happened during Youth Day and all of the things that we accomplished there?
Yeah, so yesterday was Youth Day at COP, and we started the day with a headline event, the first event of the day, which was basically talking about the global youth statement that was produced at the 16th Conference of Youth that ended last week. And this global youth statement, as you see, this is a short one pager. If you scan this, you can get the 77-page document, which was created by 40,000 young people from 140 countries. And this global youth statement was presented to the UNFCCC Executive Secretary, to the COP President, to the First Minister of Scotland, to the high-level climate champion from the UK, as well as the lead negotiator from the UK. So it was a super nice dialogue that we had, where we asked them to respond to what the global youth statement was saying. There were 6 young people who showed 6 different priorities from the global youth statement, and all of this was brought together in the response to our keynote listeners. The second event of the day, Michaela, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, the first event was really focused on the policy, really about the substance. What do young people want to see as the outcome of these negotiations? The second one was rather about personal stories of hope, personal stories of change, and this was in an intergenerational dialogue. We're doing these events since many, many years, and the aim is really to bring generations together and foster this cross-generational collaboration, because this is what we need, right? While young people are part of the negotiations, we're not the ones yet to take the decisions, but we have to work with others together. But also there is a generation who is too old now to actually sit in the negotiation tables, but they have so much value to bring in. And so what we tried to do, or what we did, is really bringing these generations together in a dialogue. And so we were 100 people in one room, and we had really amazing speakers. So from the oldest generation, there was Jane Goodall addressing us, and she was paired up with a very young activist who is doing reforestation projects. Then we had the foreign affairs minister from Panama. She is 27 or something.
She's super young.
Yeah, really amazing. And also her team is really young here at COP. They're the youngest negotiation team. We had also the minister, Roberto Cingolani. We had various youth speakers from all across the world, and actually many more speakers. I can't even remember all of them.
We also had the Commissioner for Future Generations from Wales. She's the first Commissioner for Future Generations. Her name is Sophie Howe, who also joined us. And we had a panel of young people alongside them. So we had from Jane Goodall's team, from Roots and Shoots, there was someone called Vikram. We also had from Yango, we had a speaker from Japan, one from the USA, one from Nigeria, and one from Latin America. So we had a range of speakers, close to about 10 people on the panel, sharing, like Michaela said, stories of hope, stories of change. We also had the UN Youth Envoy that joined us virtually as well, live from New York in the morning. So it was a pretty fun panel, quite interesting to learn about the different lessons learned, to learn about what people's stories are, to learn about how we can make this change together, truly intergenerational. So we had 2 great events at the start of the day. While of course they were both very special in their own ways, we really tried to bring across stories of young people, stories of the older generations, but also talk about policy change and what we would like to see at COP26.
And of course, there were many, many other events. So these were the 2 events, like the headline event and then the lunch event we organized together with the COP26 presidency and with the UNFCCC Secretariat. There were some other events around education. There was also the event from the Italian government for their Youth for Climate Summit. And also throughout the whole like COP venue, there were a lot of youth-related events. So it's really great to celebrate youth leadership and really bringing young people to the forefront and showcasing what they're doing. So this is really a day. That's also why yesterday, because afterwards we had our Youngo dinner. That's why we couldn't join you yesterday for the updates. But it's really great to have this day where we can all come together and celebrate what young people have been doing. And so that's what we have been doing mostly yesterday.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. It's been eye-opening to see the huge demand for young people and young voices. Even when, asking foreign leaders if they would come to the EarthX event and on April 22nd in Dallas, they've said, yes, you bring us, but also can we bring 2 or 3 young leaders from our nations? So it's been a great in terms of representation, but, we talk a lot about how young people are often maybe reduced to their appearance in a photo op or just, their presence and overall. Do you think that young people were really listened to and really respected in terms of their voice on Youth Day this year? And how do you feel that went?
Well, I think starting when we had the first event, we made it very, very clear to our keynote listeners, to all the high-level guests that we had in person, that we really wanted them to respond to the questions that we were posing. We wanted them to respond to the Global Youth Statement, and we had ensured that they'd received a copy of the Global Youth Statement beforehand to go through it and come prepared. And I think we were glad to say that they did that homework, and they did come prepared. They did speak to what we asked them to speak about. They did answer our questions instead of coming with pre-prepared speeches that only talk about the work that they've been doing. So I think in that sense, it was good. It was really nice to listen to them, to see that, they do take youth voices seriously. And all of them did commit to championing the Global Youth Statement in their capacity at COP26. So we really hope to see how the next week turns out, whether this actually comes into action or not. So we still have a lot to see. But at least I think the first impression that we had in the morning was on a very positive note.
Yeah, but we can also kind of quickly transition actually to today, right? We have been furthering the negotiations, and under the Action for Climate Empowerment agenda, we talked about this the last few days already. We actually could ensure that there is a youth reference in there, so that young people are especially mentioned in the negotiation text about youth empowerment. So this is really great to see. On the other hand, we also have to mention that today Saudi Arabia and the US unfortunately blocked language around human rights inclusion as well as gender inclusion when it comes to Action for Climate Empowerment, which is really sad and heartbreaking for us to see, because both gender and human rights is already mentioned in the preamble, so it's already overarching included, but we want to have a specific reference to point out the relevance when it comes to Action for Climate Empowerment to the human rights agenda as well as to the gender agenda. We have just been concluding, we can talk about this later on, just been concluding the negotiating bodies, and it was actually really brought up by many countries that it's very unfortunate that this language has been crossed out in a very late negotiation, but actually most of the countries haven't even been present, and of course we as observers also haven't been present. So this is really heartbreaking to see that despite all the efforts actually on Youth Day, this language has been removed, and we really hope that this can be added back, as this is very crucial for us, because at the end of the day there is.
And it seems that we've lost our co-host Marie-Claire and Hita, but what they were talking about is specifically devastating. Welcome back, you guys. Sorry, I thought I lost you for a second. I just wanted to add on that this is specifically devastating, considering that the United States and Saudi Arabia were also part of the team that blocked the IPCC 1.5 degree report in past times. So we're constantly running into these global superpowers denying some of the very vital issues that we're facing right now. So to continue, and obviously, you all have been up late, and I have to our audience, Hita and Marie-Claire have been working from very early hours to very late hours all these days. So here it is, almost 12:40 in Glasgow. And so just as a closing, how was today, and how do you look towards the next week of COP and what we can accomplish as we close out the COP?
Yeah, we're actually right now at the venue. We are just in between the two plenary halls, which are the biggest halls where all the parties are coming together. So they have a capacity of over 1,000 seats, and we have just been concluding a few minutes ago the one of the two negotiating bodies. So we have the negotiating body on implementation and the one on
scientific and technological advices.
and they just both have been concluding a few minutes ago. So we hadn't even had the time to go back to our office. That's why we are standing with this beautiful background here in front of the plenary halls. With this, we have been concluding the negotiation now under the implementation and the scientific and technological advisors bodies, which, yeah, again, like some language didn't make it. We would like to see. That's also why Yango could, or as always, we have been doing 2 interventions, so we can address all the parties along all the constituencies, and we have been stressing our key demands again on various different items when it comes to action for climate empowerment, when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to the Article 6 of the carbon trading scheme, when it comes to the finance commitments. So we have been again delivering what are our measures of success, what do we want to see. Again, comes back also to your question before, are the youth taken into consideration? Yes, we are, but there are still a lot of demands we have left to ensure that our key demands make it into the negotiations.
Great. So as my last question, and obviously for our audience, I apologize for the briefness of this one, but we all need sleep. We have to get ready for our next day at COP and for the days to follow. But as youth and as youth leaders and as the global focal points of Youngo, what do you want to see? Obviously, this week is written in stone. You may see some things that you like, you may see some things that you don't. But heading into COP27, what are some of those goals that you want to be achieved in terms of heading into the negotiations? What do you want to be a main focal point of the whole COP27 compared to this year's COP26?
Well, I think there are different ways of what we're doing. Currently, we just, like Marie-Claire mentioned, concluded 2 of the negotiating bodies that have been working under the COP. And the COP has different negotiating bodies. These feed into the final COP process, and the COP is the supreme decision-making body, which is why everyone just knows it has the Conference of Parties or the COP, but it's actually a lot more complex that goes under it. But within Youngo, the way we're structured is we have different working groups focusing on different topics. And these topics sometimes are quite interlinking, quite overlapping between the different negotiating bodies. And today we had a press conference for part of our working groups that presented what they expect from COP, what was their lessons learned from week 1, and whether or not this has been useful. So we have a very special guest with us today who can come in and talk about the press conference. She's leading on communications on the ground here at COP26 from Youngo, and was leading on the press conference. So we'd like to get her in to share lessons learned and stories of change from today.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Vina.
Hi, Jet. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'd love to know. I'd love to hear all of your perspective, and go ahead and jump into how you feel about how today went, how International Youth Day went, how you feel forward.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday was quite intense. You would have heard from the updates that they gave that Youngo, it was a very important day for Youngo, and we had a lot of things that went on. And Youngo's event was the headline event for yesterday. So we've been working on for months.
Yeah.
So it was months of work that came together yesterday, which we kind of also presented to the members of the press today, which was amazing because to be honest, we had amazing feedback from everybody out there who said this is the first press conference that has had like a room full of people, and we had to send many away because there was no capacity. We had like reached over capacity, which was good because that shows that people care about the young adults and our voices, and they want to hear and they want to highlight it, which was amazing. What was also interesting about the press conference, if I have to talk a little bit about that, is we had 6 of our working groups who have been following negotiations in the past week at COP. So they came and presented their thoughts and views on what has been discussed so far at the negotiations, at different events, closed room meetings, open discussions on what they have been listening to and how they feel about youth positions from there. So that was very interesting. We had so we have different working groups in Youngo, and today we had some of them represent, for example, renewable energy, because we had our energy day already. We had a working group which works on agriculture, nationally determined contributions, commonly known as NDCs, ACE, which they've been talking about, which they also spoke about a little while ago, action for climate empowerment. We also had, for me, the highlight was about circular economy. So we also have a working group that focuses on circular economy, and they highlighted how, interestingly, circular economy as a concept is not at all discussed at COP, right? Because this is a very important concept for achieving climate action itself, but somehow this has been really underrepresented. It's not brought up in negotiations a lot. So the working group has been following everything, and they came in with a lot of suggestions on how the president or the COP body, they can make decisions, what kind of proposals that can be offered as solutions. So I think that was a really fun, or rather very interesting observation for us. But overall, we're done. So it was good to have the press conference today as a conclusion of week one. We will also have one in week two, and we will have rest of the working groups who will be following the negotiations next week. They will be talking about their positions and press statements. So probably I'll come back again and share more details then.
That sounds perfect. Well, we look forward to having you back, and this has been very informative for our audience, and obviously it's a late night for all of us. So I just wanted to hear from y'all any closing statements. We're not going to take any questions from the audience tonight, but we'll get back on an earlier time frame. I promise, March for Science audience, that we'll get back on an earlier time frame. But from y'all, a closing statement would be amazing.
Yeah, maybe I can start. As mentioned, it was the closing, and it was really great to see how much reference there was to the importance of science, to 1.5, which was really encouraging to me, because the negotiations can be very draining, and with all of this nitty gritty, one can really quickly lose the bigger picture and the overview where we are heading to. And it's also really encouraging for me that actually no one in this negotiation rooms is talking about 2 degrees anymore. Everyone is talking about 1.5. If you're going to make it or not, like this is another question, but like this is really important, I think, for the spirit here. And also this is what we have been commonly achieving. We have been pushing for this as young people, the science community, March for Science, and so many others have been pushing for exactly this. And now we at least reached that it's mainstream. People are talking about it. So many countries made reference to it. And this for me was really a highlight to see that this really kind of infiltrated the whole space, and so now today no one talks about 2 degrees anymore. So this was for me a highlight, and I'm looking very much forward to work on these promises also in the second week, and see what we can do to even more increase the ambitions and the actions and the promises here on ground, and we can also really hope for the accurate implementation and delivery.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think the other highlight for me was also the reference to the importance of working with young people, the importance of ensuring that youth are a part of the text, but also part of being engaged. They're really being more and more spoken about when it comes to the language of the UNFCCC, when it comes to the language of these texts that we talk about. It's pretty important for us to have these words in the text. Otherwise, it's very easy to overlook, and it's very easy to overshadow what's been done. So I think it was super important also, and really nice to see how often youth were referenced and were actually brought into the text. Like we also mentioned previously, there was a small victory where we had the mention of young people in the text for Action for Climate Empowerment, while at the other hand, we lost out on human rights. But it's when we look at these different things coming together, it's good to see that we make progress. It's good to see that we're really trying to be inclusive, bringing together stakeholders together, and not just talking about countries, but really looking at civil society, looking at an inclusive everyone nature when we talk about achieving climate action.
And maybe if I have to add just another closing point as well, I think what
Please do.
So what is very interesting for me is to see the solidarity of the youth itself and the kind of commitment that they have been bringing in. Because today, looking at the press statements, I was fascinated by how much honesty and how much willpower they had for demanding all of these things. And, so it is amazing to see all of them come together and unify as one voice. And I think that is very important and really crucial at this point of time.
Amazing. Well, we've seen a lot of unification among the youth, and I think that's been, one of my favorite experiences of COP is coming here and understanding how many youth leaders and even youth voters, youth organizers are here to support, they're here to join the voices. So, we look forward to a tough another week of COP, but we're closing it out, and you all are doing the most amazing work. And even heading into next year, we'll do what we can for our audience watching. We're going to do what we can this week, but we don't have all of the power that we wish we had. But moving into next year, we're going to understand what we can do to have that voice, to have what we have now and have the power that we do. So thank you all for joining me again. And we're going to let all of these amazing organizers get some sleep because they deserve it. But for our audience out there, please join us again tomorrow. And the next day, we'll be keeping you posted on what's happening here at COP. So from all of us here, thank you and good night.
Good night.
Bye.